I don't remember where we were up to, so I made the Shemayim.
It's not in case somebody wants to physical.
Okay. I want to thank the Parnes HaYom, the Panosim of today, Lizzie and Shariel Ross, לעילוי נשמת רבקה בת חיים ונשמת לעילוי and the whole family should be simcha nachas and bracha. We're learning it's really a very remarkable maimah from the author Bilvavi Mishkan Evne in his new sefer Shiur Hanun, to try to understand the chiddush of what it is we're up against at the end of time, the opportunity that we have in the world of Kedusha, but the Zelumazeh in the world of Toma. And we were talking about the ways throughout time that a person's able to connect one to the other and to his surroundings in the ways of panim v'achor, facing towards and from behind and so on. Let's just go back to Shin Ayin Gimel. On your phones you have, I think there were pages I gave last week. But the Shin Ayin Gimel, that's where we're up to. So we were learning how everything in creation is modeled after the Tzuras HaAdam. The Tzuras HaAdam. And anybody who learns the Svarim Kedoshim, learns Kabbalah Svarim, knows that all of creation and all that exists is in that way of Tzuras HaAdam. And that surah of Adam, that of man, that in the mother's womb, before the baby comes into the world, is Mavri B'Sayfer L'Mad Sayfer, is able to see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. So with that light of creation that we were learning last week, that's the light of creation, the 7 days, the Tzuras HaAdam. Therefore, we begin our lives inside our mothers with being able to see in such a way, So on page Shin Ayin Gimel, the 4th line, but we're living at the end of time, the last generation. The end of time is the Or of Mashiach is misnaitzes in a very strong way. There's already the first appearances, not the first, but a much stronger hisnaitzes of the light of Mashiach. The Navi says that Mashiach is going to arrive very suddenly. Pisam Yova HaMelech Eleichalu is going to arrive suddenly. Mashiach Yova Vasachas. Mashiach is going to suddenly appear. Aval B'Pnimiyas, that's as far as the Chitzonius. That person, that Tzaddik, Mashiach that we're davening for, that we're waiting for, it's going to be suddenly, he's going to appear. Aval B'Pnimiyas Ha'orahi Ke Suras Zvichas HaChama. However, in Pnimius, the Or of Mashiach that precedes the arrival of Mashiach, we were told by Chazal that Or is Kitsuras Zvichas HaChama. It's like the sun rising. Shizarachas Kima Kima. That the sun rises gradually, Kima Kima. Ma'at Ma'at, slowly. V'kachu ahofen shemeir Orish HaMashiach b'Pnimius b'Doros Achrayim. And so, in these last generations before Mashiach comes, not just ours, but it began began some generations ago, this light of Mashiach is gradually entering into our lives. Umahu Irish Mashiach. What is this Or Mashiach? What does this mean? We don't have this Or yet. We know that the light of Hashem is Or Ein Sof, it's infinite. Now, all we know is that at the beginning of time, Hashem created the world in such a way where there was this light that was from Seifa Olam Adam Seifa Bami Seifa Olam Seifa. The Hagonas, the hidden light. Man was able to see from one end of the world to the other, and we experienced that before we were born. Miseifa Olam Seifa. But Arish Mashiach is a different madreg. Unlike the light of creation and that which we taste of in our mother's wombs, which has a self, is misofa olam ad sofa. It is finite. It has an end, a beginning and an end. Misofa olam ad sofa. But the Or that's going to be revealed when Mashiach comes is Or Ein Sof. It's infinite. It's a light that is higher than the creation of 7 days. It's Or L'Loi Sof. It's light without end. We don't know what this means, we can't understand this, but this is what's going to be revealed ultimately when Mashiach comes. Or Ein Sof. She'oz ha'or azay is called Mitzius Abriya, and that light is going to completely fill all of creation. Light we could understand as awareness and understanding. Not talking about electricity. We're talking about an understanding and awareness. And everybody knows that in order for this world to exist the way that it is now, with this Bechira Chashus, with this free choice, Hashem was Metzamtzem. Hashem concealed His infinite light. Hashem concealed His infinite light. So when Chazal say that when Mashiach comes at the end of time, the sun is going to be taken out of its covering. Right now, the sun is still covered. The light that we see is a partial light. When Mashiach comes, the sun will be fully revealed. It's not talking about sunshine. It's talking about the light of Hashem. That in the future, when Mashiach comes, Hashem is going to take out the sun from its covering. The process of tzimtzum, by which Hashem hid His infinite light, is the eclipse, is that concealment of the full light of Hashem. So we're not able to experience Hashem's presence in that way of Orish Shel Mashiach. We're not able to experience it in that way because it's hidden. When Mashiach comes, Hashem is going to take the sun out of its covering. Yusa harnartik shel hatzimtzum, then that concealment that began with the tzimtzum at the time of creation will be removed. That concealment will be removed. V'yahir ha'or she'ein lo sof.
I'm sorry, Rabbi's house is standing up on the other side.
What?
Your shirt right there.
Yeah.
I know it bothers Rabbi, so
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
My wife appreciates it.
I'm sure I did what the Rabbi said.
So that Or Ein Sof is what's going to be revealed at the end of time. It's probably making everybody crazy. So these things are. So here's where we're getting to the Chiddush. We're not going to really get fully into it yet today, but the Chiddush of what we're living through right now. So before Mashiach comes, there is a hisnoitzus of Orish Mashiach, of the infinite light. A level of revelation that was never until now. That's why we're just simple people. We're sitting and learning these kind of things. Our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers never spoke about this stuff. They just said, oh, why not pass the kishka? and they were trying to learn some Mishnayos and Gemara, which is a huge thing. And to be Ma'aber there were always some Mekubalim, but very, very few and very hidden. And now we're living at the end of time, and there's something that's changing in a very, very good and a remarkable, wonderful way. But everything exists in Zelu Mazeh. So we're already tasting of Aish HaMashiach, a preview, a hisnotzitzos of the infinite light of Hashem. And that's how we're learning these things. That's what we're learning. But everything is in a way of Zelu Mazeh. It means that if there's such a light that is beginning to be revealed, Gam Koach Hara Kibel Koach Takif VaAmok Yoser B'Dor Basra. Since we're still at a time of Bechira, and Mashiach is not here, whatever there is that is good must be offset by something that is challenging it to conceal it in Ra. That's how Amalek is described in Chumash. Kiyad al Keis Ka. That Amalek is covering. The meaning of Amalek is a covering. Kiyad al Keis Ka. That Amalek is covering the two letters of Yud Hey in Hashem's name. So we are able to experience a light of Hashem Vav Hey, but it's very, very, very concealed and very hidden. And the Yud Kei, we're not able to see, and that's the Koch of Amalek. But since at the end of time, Hashem is beginning to pull away the covering, and this began at the time by the English calendar, really at the time we've spoken about this in last year's Shiur, in the English calendar by 1840, in a very strong way. It began earlier, but as the Zohar already told us would be, this has to do with this notice of Mashiach and the light of the Vilna Gaon, the Ramchal, and the Rashash, and all of that the light, the covering is being peeled away. But that means that at the same time that there's a hisnotzitzos of that Ein Sof, as a taste of Mashiach, that there's a certain darkness and a certain Ra that is coming to fight against that, because Hashem made this world in the way of Zelu Mazeh. So there's a level of Ra that exists now that has never existed, a type of Ra that has to do, as we'll see, that has to do with something beyond Sofer Levad Sofer. Any way that a person can look, forward, backwards, sideways, that we were talking about the past few weeks. There's something different now. Koach Rashi Keneged Suras Adam. All throughout history, there was a Koach of Ra that was always fighting against the Tsuras HaAdam. Fighting against the Tsuras HaAdam men in this world. The Koach Rashi L'Malam Tsuras Adam. But at the end of time, there's the beginning of that revelation of the infinite light that is beyond anything that we've ever seen in this world. So therefore, the koach that stands against that revelation of infinite light is a type of darkness that seems to be, it's not, but it seems to be infinite. It's Shukeneged Or Ein Sof. It's the Malam Yitzuras Adam. This is what everybody's fighting with these days. This is what the kids in school. The first time it dawns on a kid that he or she wants to have a phone. We're talking about something that's the Malam Yitzuras Adam. That B'derech HaTeva, a human being cannot contend with, cannot fight against. It's something which is higher than all of the regular kalim that we've had, all of the regular shiurim that we ever heard, all of the regular precautions and all of the filters, all of that other throughout all of history used by way of guarding himself and holding himself in the world of Kedusha and connecting to the light of Torah and mitzvahs. Something before Mashiach comes, as the infinite light of Hashem begins to be opened and revealed, there's a koach of Ra that feels ki'ilu, it's infinite. It's without any boundaries. It's without anything holding it back. It's Ein Sof. So Reish is the bottom of page Shin Ayin Gimel. Reish is koach harash shemakbil l'tzuras adam. The koach of Ra that corresponds to the tzuras adam, misgalahu atzam b'shnei ofanim, is revealed in two ways. Ad dar basra, until our generation, until now. Gilui koach hara here connected tzuras adam. The koach of Ra was that koach that stood up to the tzuras adam. Chedei lahalim alahaster is tzuras adam, in order to conceal and to hide man's true greatness and man's true stature. Page 9 dal. V'chalav anim sheyeshna. Kol dar gilui koach Ra prati. So in the last generation there was a koach of communism. It's the Moshe. And that koach of communism was his galus of the koach of Ra that stood against all dvarim shebekdusha, and that was misgala in such a way against the tzuras adam that even the non-Jewish world saw and finally began to realize is unbelievably dangerous and destructive. And so it's been in every generation. It's Muhammad Hashem B'Amalek Midor Dor. In every generation, there's been different koachos that have fought against the tzuras adam. Kol Dor Gilui Koach Ra Prati Mikoachos Hara Shel Tzuras Adam Yitzad Hara. Commission is Bar La'el. Ha'ifanim Shemizgal B'Hem Hara B'Tzuras Adam Yikar B'Panim or B'Panim. And the Iker Tzura of that Milchama throughout history was things that you could see with your eyes. And there was also certain koach, as we learned about last week, of a person sensing and feeling something and being curious to see what's behind him. That causes a person to try to see what's going on. There's tutzlach here and over there, and feeling it to be curious about what's happening. But all of that is in the domain of misayfer alubad sayfer. So a person can get a telescope, he can see further. Or get a microscope, he can see in such a way. There were different ways, but it was always panim v'achor. That was throughout all of time. That milchama that the Ramchal describes at the beginning of Mesilas Yesharim was a milchama panim v'achor. That's what he writes. Forwards and backwards. Achor v'kedem tzaratoni, as I mentioned last week, that's what it says in the Pasuk. Hashem created us in such a way. And throughout all of time, man was challenged. The tzuras adam was challenged by Ra, in front and behind, and sideways and so on. However, in our generation, his gala oimek noisav b'koach hara shekeneged hatzuras adam. There has been revealed. This all comes from Kodesh Baruch Hu. A koach of Ra against the tzuras adam. Shezo hakoach hanoira shemunach bekli shes chadish b'dor achra. That there is this chiddush of the kli, of technology that was created in our lifetime, not so long ago. Mitzad kilkul shemunach b'toichen shemechil hakli hazeh, and all the kilkulim that have come from this kli. The geder hadavar hu b'shebekli hazeh, and the geder, to understand what this is, to understand what is the challenge of our generation. Shebekli hazeh, that in this kli munach be'etzem kol koach hara shekol yemais olam bevas achas. The koach of Ra of all of history is found there bevas achas yachid im shorish shel koach hara, with the koach of the yachid in the shorish, with the root of the koach of Ra, which is the koach of Amalek. But we're not even there to the Ein Sof yet. We're not up to that. It's really Karik base. Mitzad kach mizgal b'zelu mazeh asar elokim. So the zelu mazeh asar elokim, that for the people here who are under 40, we're already raised with, is mul hatzuras adam shezah gilu shekol yemay saydam adar basra, is standing against the tzuras adam of all earlier generations. Yeshes hashchasa shel tzuras adam. So on a basic level, there's a hashchasa, there's an unbelievable destruction of the tzuras adam. Shezeh kol inyan shel hakli hazeh, which is the whole inyan of this kli. Of course, besides all the positive things that, like you have, everything is zelu mazeh and kedusha. In kedusha, people have never been exposed to as much Torah and shiur, and they're able to watch a shiur that's taking place on the other end of the world. There was never such a thing, to be able to see a shiur and to learn Torah, and there's so many things that are wonderful. but the other side of this kli, the darker side of this kli, is lahashchis tzuras adam. Lahashchis is to completely destroy tzuras adam. Yeshes adam de kedusha. The Sfarim tell us that each one of us, there's an adam of kedusha, and there's connected yeshes adam blial. There's a darker, evil adam. Each person has these two parts, like a lahavdil, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in each person. Koloshna Chazal Shemur b'Seinav ha'kli hazeh v'anikra adam blial. And this kli, which means the negative and destructive use of technology, is adam blial. Blial means bli'ol. Bli'ol. Without anything to constrain the person, without anything holding him back. Commission Tzuras Adam the Kedusha Kalelis is called Kaima Kulam Reish Ad Akabai. Umanach Ba Kolam Adregas Kolav Sharius Kulab Shazamasha Kolav Bria Kula Ibit Tzuras Adam. Remember, we learned at the beginning that when Hashem created the world, that all of existence, all of creation is the Tzuras Adam. So now all of the Ra, all of the Ra that's in creation is available to the Tzuras Adam in his hand. All of the Ra in creation is the Tzuras Adam. Keneged Kachish Kli Echad Shel HaRa. There's a Kli Echad of Ra. Shel Keneged Kol HaBriya Kula. That's Keneged Kol HaBriya Kula. She B'Tzuras Adam, which is man, Tzuras Adam. Va'Kli Echad Azeh Imkain Hu HaAdam B'Lial Sho'em Keneged Sol Kol Tzuras HaBriya She B'Tzuras Adam T'Kedusha. And this Kli is the Adam Blial that corresponds or contains within it the whole Tzuras Abriya, which is Tzuras Adam of Kedusha, Tzuras Adam. Kamuvan Shemitzad Kach, Humevi L'chol Ha'aveir Shabar. It's only 10:30 in the morning, and this morning I'm already on the phone with somebody, not here, somebody not in the neighborhood, but with a person whose life is now has been completely destroyed because of what happened and something with his phone and with his wife. That was this morning, and it doesn't go a day without the Adam, the Tzuras Adam, being completely destroyed, and with that, his wife and his children. Kol Aver Shabaylam. Now we know that the 248 positive mitzvahs and the 365 negative correspond to the Tzuras Adam. 248, 365. The Varm and the Gidim of a person, V'imkain, HaKli Ezeh Shekol B'Sarches Kol Tzuras Arad, the Kilkul, Shezeh Adam Blial, this Kli that has the energy, the Koach, the Choshech of Tzuras Rav to be Makalkel, the person, the complete Tzuras Adam, Haishebehechrech, that through this kli, all possible averis in this world are brought out. Each person according to what his own inyanim are. But the kli itself, and people use it differently, but the actual device itself, has kol haveris kula. The actual device itself, if a person wants to Again, there's things that I've just. If a person wants to learn how to make a bomb, you can look it up you could get it on your phone. If a person wants to figure out a way how to poison, the water in his neighborhood, I'm sure there's a press of a couple of buttons, and you're there in that scary dark world of those Rishonim that are thinking about these things. Any single person now, there's something that we know what's happening. If you have a bacher that's beginning to wonder, maybe I had some sort of a strange taiva for another bacher, then he just gets a phone, he presses a few buttons, and in 30 seconds, he's part of an entire community. A whole culture in 30 seconds. He's part of a culture and a community of darkness. And any ra that any aveira, any ra, the person it wants to know about worshiping idols, something that the Ganshik Knesset already mavapa ra. If a person wants to know any single thing, and it's all in that kli. Not everybody knows or is interested in using it for all these different things, but the kli itself has in it a kli as a mitzad atzmo, kol besoches kol averos kulam. Avodah shvichas dom. Whatever it is, a person wants to know how to kill somebody, the best way to kill somebody, it's in the kli. It's all there in the kli. And there's even a whole machloikis about how far should the government go in all the places in the world to try to cancel or to conceal the Rishonim who are there. Every anti-Semite in the world is on the kli, and if he hasn't yet posted, it's all a touch of the button. Every single thing in the world, every Koich Avra, every Hitler, every Eichmann, every Paro, every Achashverosh, every Haman is on that kli. Zeluma Zeh, you have also Tzadikim, Kedoshim, but every single type of ra, every possible Aveira. I mentioned many times over the years how when Herzl came to Eretz Yisrael, he went up to the Makom HaMikdash, he went up to the Har Bayis. And Reb Chaim Sonnenfeld said, I was always wondering, I was thinking, like, what is it that he had such a taiva to go, Herzl had such a taiva to go up to that? He's totally not religious. He used to celebrate Christmas in his house. He had a Christmas tree, Herzl. He said he has no shaykhs to Yiddishkeit, notwithstanding whatever he tried to do to help Jews, but he had no shaykhs to Yiddishkeit. So why did he have to go up to this mitzvah, he had to go up to the Har? So Reb Chaim Sonnenfeld said, then I realized that this was one Aveira that he couldn't do in Chutz La'aretz. It's felt, like this Aveira, it bothered him. Because every Aveira he was able to do in Austria. But this Aveira he couldn't do until he came to Yerushalayim to go up to the mosque. This he couldn't do. Every Aveira is on this kli. You could probably take a virtual trip also because you're not over by taking a virtual trip to over there to the Har Bayis. But every single thing is on this kli. Kol Averos Kula. Mitzad Kach, K'moish Ad Ador Achron Iker Kechol Koach Hara She's Gal Bebir HaYeshayach LaMahalchei HaGilish Etzuras Adam. All the Ra until this generation was shaykh to the Mahalchim, to the pathways of that Tzuras Adam, to hold back the true Tzuras Adam. K'mechem is Gal Gam Ador Achron. So at the end of time, the last generation, Elishach Shevzem is Gal Kekoach Shal Klolus Lumas Kol Adors. But now, it's instead of a person having just what he could see in his village or his town or in the street of his city, or to look at something that's a picture of something from another place. But now it's Mizgal Koch Klolos Lumas Kol Hader Sheizgal B'Chaldor Koch Prati Shara. So until now, in every generation, there was a different type of a different gilui of Ra, different type of Ra that was in that generation the strongest gilui of Ra. But now, in the end of time, it's all of the different Giluyim of Ra are together in one Kli. We still haven't gotten to this inyan of the Or Ein Sof. We're still talking about Misofer Alamat Sofer. Kli Shemakal Madregas Hazman Shal Kol Seidim Moisolim. The Perik Beis, Aval HaChelek HaElyon Shal Hara. On page 9, Shin Ayin Hey. But the highest koach of Ra that's Mezgala in the technology that we have, Makbil Heoris Ha'ein Sof Baruch Hu. Not just me Seifel Amad Seifai, every possible thing in the world. It's Makbil Heoris Ha'ein Sof Baruch Hu Shemezgala B'achas Yom. It's a war against that his galus of the infinite light of Hashem that's beginning to be revealed before Mashiach comes. This technology contains within it a nitzait of Ein Sof, of the infinite light of Hashem. Well, the zelu mazeh, I mean the anti-light of Hashem. He's now going to try to explain what is this koach of the klipa, of the impurity of Ein Sof, that's mezgala in what we have now in the technology. This boinin v'novin. Let's understand. In this last generation, as we draw closer to Moshe Mashiach, there's more and more, again, Hashem is beginning to uncover that light. Until it will be fully revealed when Mashiach comes. And this goes on. I'm not going into that right now. What does it mean? The Sefer Elav HaSiri, the 10th millennia, the Giluyim, the different Giluyim, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and finally the 10th. We're not going into that now. Until the Hisgalus of Mashiach, there is now in the world, in this last generation, there's a koach that's coming to hide the Ein Sof, to try to shut us out, to keep us from tasting that or Ein Sof that's beginning to be revealed, and to prevent the coming of Mashiach, or to delay, not prevent, but to delay the coming of Mashiach. Ubedakus, Yeshnam Shnei Kochas Yisodim Shemastirim Es Ha'aras Ein Sof. So he explains. It's a very, Bedakus means it's a very edel nakuda, it's a very, very subtle nakuda, that there are two basic kochas that are covering the light of Ein Sof. HaKoach HaRishon Zo Koach Gvuli. The Koach Gvuli, the Koach of limitation, of boundaries, of Gvul. Beloshon Daka, which we're learning about in the Ayek Shiur in a way of Kedusha. Beloshon Daka Zo Or Gvuli Shemastir Es Ha'aras Ein Sof. The Or of Ein Sof is infinite. There's a koach that's called Or Gvuli of that which is finite. That's mastir that conceals Ha'aras Ein Sof. Ki Or Ein Sof Ein Lo Sof. Or Ein Sof is without end. It's infinite. Vilo Or Gvuli, but the light of Gvul, of boundaries, of constriction. HaGvul Shabay Mastir Es Or Shein Lo Sof. The Gvul, that border, that boundary, is concealing and hiding the Or Shein Lo Sof. That's one koach that's concealing the Or Ein Sof. Shnai and Vav. Aviesh koach nosef shemastir es ha'ein sof. But there's another koach that's keeping us from the Or Ein Sof, from that Or of Mashiach. Zomash Masgala koach shu me'ein de me'ein shel Ein Sof. Me'ein de me'ein shel Ein Sof. I just came to my head. This may be a silly mashal because I'm not so familiar with how this works. Only what you've explained a little bit to me, some of the chevra, but there was always just al derech mashal. There were certain places where a person couldn't go. That's called. There's a certain gvul where you weren't allowed. For instance, if you were a little kid, you couldn't go into a bad movie. Okay. So there were certain gvulim, there were boundaries that were established by society, by the law, not just by the Torah. There were certain gvulim where where a normal person wasn't able to cross, and even if he had such a machshava that he wanted to go there, but there was a fence. And he wasn't allowed to go. He couldn't go, and there were things that were preventing him. There's a koch hagvul that was preventing this person from going to certain places and doing certain things. There's a koch hagvul. Some years ago, they created, these brilliant people created something called virtual reality, which I just know about from hearing. I don't know what it means exactly, but last week some of the Chaburah were telling me that you feel like you're mamish living in something, and you could even talk to, I don't know, live with somebody or in that virtual reality, and you move a certain way, and it's happening. It's key that other person who's your charusa in that inyan is also. I don't know how it works, but there's this mitzias that's not it's a mitzias that's not mitzias. That's called virtual reality. It's a mitzias that's not mitzias. Ad kedei kach that someone told me at the end of the shiur last week that they have to be careful because people could get killed. They could walk off a building or something. They could die because they're in a different mitzias, and they lose the regular mitzias with the gvulim because they're in this virtual reality without gvulim, so they could go past the gvul. They can go past the gvul and die.
They can fly.
What? A person could walk off a building or think he whatever, and he right in that virtual reality, he's Superman or something, or whatever it is, and it's so realistic. Now, is that ein gvul appears to be mamish b'li gvul, ad kedei kach that a person can die, can die. So, what Rav Schwartz is saying is that just like this as a marshal, that what he's saying is that there's one thing there's one way of keeping a person from connecting to the Or Ein Sof, and that there's a gvul, there's different gvulim, whatever our own yetzaharas and our own deficiencies that keep us from connecting to that Or Ein Sof. But then you have something else. What we have is not that there's a boundary or a gvul that's keeping you. So you can't go into the Beis HaMikdash, and there are signs there that say, "Don't go beyond this place." That's telling Jews who care about halacha, you can't go over here. So then anybody that cares about halacha knows, oh, I'm not allowed to. This is a place I can't go. And when we had the Beis HaMikdash, there were kahanim, there were levim, there were shmira, and so on. And people knew where they can go and where they couldn't go, and everything was exactly with all of the gvulim. Well, what he's saying is, so until now there were gvulim that would keep a person from, even in the world of kedusha, from Ein Sof, and in the world of tumah, from terrible things. But now he says there's another way of keeping a person that's covering the Ein Sof. An alternate Ein Sof, a virtual reality, an alternate Ein Sof, me'ein, because that's the chiddush of the end of time. There's an alternate virtual Ein Sof. So there are two ways of keeping somebody away from Ein Sof, the light of Ein Sof. One is by there being borders and boundaries, and the other is to fool people, just to fool people, and to create a virtual Ein Sof, to create something that has a certain excitement, a certain thrill, a certain sense of infinity, boundlessness, that mimics Ein Sof. So, there was never such a thing in all of history. that there were all kinds of gvulim, all types of gvulim. Things that were keeping the person back from Kedusha, the koach of Amalek, all the speeches about Amalek for the last few thousand years, and the koach of holding a person back from becoming a tzaddik, v'chule, v'chule. But it was always that you recognized that this was the enemy, and this is what you're up against, and this is a certain gvul that's holding you back from being a tzaddik, whatever. And of course, there was always a world that you could see that was exciting and interesting. That was offering you all kinds of opportunities to enjoy, but there was never ever a virtual reality of Ein Sof. Now, this is a combination of Morgenstern. Rabbi Shammai speaks a lot. He doesn't really, here, doesn't really address this as much, but this is also connected to the experience of substance abuse, of drugs. This is also that there are people that are taking stuff throughout all of time to different things, but a culture of drugs as really began to be exposed when I was a kid. That started strong back in the 60s and the 70s. It's a chiddush at the end of time. But there also we're talking about a person living in a virtual reality of Ein Sof. Even the people that have tried to use l'tov, because there's a tremendous zelu mazeh in that world of psychedelics, as you know, that there's a lot that's being done right now to help people to save lives with the koach of psychedelics, the drugs, because there's always zelu mazeh. So they're now discovering that you're able to take a person who's a magushim dika person who's not able to experience anything in ruchnias, and through taking some of these things, he's able to have to experience a certain hisgalus of that which is infinite. This was never until the end of time, until now. These opportunities, the tov and l'ra, obviously when the psychedelics are used in a way of kedusha, of healing, then it's part of the Aish Mashiach. It goes together with learning with Tanya in kedusha, with healing, and bringing a person into that or of Mashiach Tzedkenu, the infinite light of Hashem. When it's in a way of Tumah, the Zelu Mazeh, it creates a Zelu Mazeh, a virtual reality that presents itself as Ein Sof, as infinite. There's never been such a thing until now, until this and the end of time, which in these past few generations, there's never been such a thing. The chachshus of this, in the deepest way, is now. Let's just finish this sentence here. In all generations until now, what was mostly hiding the infinite was the koch of gvul, the kedusha, koch or the kedusha, and so on. The world was created with a light that has a beginning and an end. It has a beginning and has an end. And there were many ways in that until this time. There are many ways throughout history, that the Yetzer Hara was covering that or to be master the or of Hashem throughout all of time. That was the seder Kol Yimei Seilam. But now at the end of time, Hisvasev Koach Chodesh. There's a new Koach. Shemaster Umalim Es Ein Sof, not with the Koach of Gevul, not because you can't go there, or man is kept from those places, not because of a Koach of Gevul, of borders, of boundaries, of limitations, but there's something else. Kivyachal HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nasan LaKoach HaRa, Kivyachal Hashem has given at the end of time, the Koach of Ra, his galus musuyemes, a certain way of being revealed, shekivyachal he nearest kedavar she'en lo sof. That seems to be something she'en lo sof. When you see people that can't put the phone down, that they can't let go of it, when you walk into shul and you see people sitting with 1,000 tefillin, and they're still. I'm not talking about emergency, obviously, with the doctors. You see people that can't. It's something which is different. There was never such an Indian like this that has a feeling of Ein Sof. That it's infinite. It doesn't. There's no borders. There's no boundaries. It's an imposter of the infinite light of God. It's an infinite light of Ra, of emptiness, that has in it the entire creation and beyond. Beyond. Nearest Kedavish She'ein Lo Sof. Zegufa Malim Alamitas or Ein Sof. And that itself is concealing the Or Ein Sof that we have access to now before Mashiach comes, the Or Ein Sof. By they came, Amitoso HaNe'alama Musteres. This is the Zelum Hazeh, to hide those beginnings of the revelation of the Or Ein Sof of Hashem. This is the koach of in Ra, of the Odom Blial, of the Choshech Ein Sof. V'zeu oimek ha-melchama ha-neira she'nachnu nimtzoim ba'achshav b'dor basra. And this is the oimek of the milchama that we're in until now, that we're in now, that we've never been in before. That's why I was talking to somebody who had the program over the last few days on Shabbos. So one of the chevra was describing to me was that when the whole Maisa happened with the Rishonim of Hamas came out with the sheker, the law. You remember the beginning with the hospital that the Jews blew up their hospital, so the whole 500 people were killed. So he was explaining to me that we had 30 seconds to respond to that. Not really even, because the second that was out, Misoifa Olavad Soifa, that was it. And that milchama is a milchama. There was never such a milchama in the world. So now the whole world is verkoift with this sheker that Jews are committing genocide. I mean, it's and that was just the beginning of that. But there's no time anymore. There's no Indian of time. It's all. It happens instantaneously. It's not even in a second. It's less than a second. It's nothing. It's no Indian of time. Time is a world of gruelim when there's time. Time, you have a ghoul, you have boundaries, you have places and time. But it's not anymore. So there's no time. And without any time, there's no ghoul of time. So before you can count to 10, it's already the whole world is already in a different place, in a sheker. It's a different place. In a virtual reality. That's Ein Sof. Virtual reality of sheker. That there was never ever such a thing. It would have to be months of talking and lecturing and this and that and going and bringing with the Rishonim and all this stuff and nothing, not even a second. It's all finished. It's a choshech that comes from Mitzrayim, Vayomish choshech, where the choshech is something that's not. There was a taste of it because that's the beginning of Gula is Mitzrayim, and it hasn't the whole Golas. So it must be already in Mitzrayim. There was an Indian of what we're going through now, an Indian of it, which is Vayomish choshech. There was never such a thing. So on that note, and we'll continue next week. Hold on to the pages, all right? I'm trying to bring them with you. Can I give you just one on that, what I meant? I'm so sorry to hold you back for a second. I mentioned it by Shal Shudas yesterday. And again, think about it. Anybody could volunteer. We just need like 2 guys that would volunteer for this unbelievable thing called Our Mishpacha, where it's using this koyach and kedusha of how to give chizik each different families to take sort of connect to different families in using this koyach in Tov. So if just think about it, if there's some people, 1 or 2 people that would, I'll put you in touch with Ari Bergman to discuss how it works. And it's not machayev you just to hear if it's something which is shy. So I appreciate it.